1 million people estimated to have left Ukraine in just 7 days, and that number is increasing by the day. Now, at that pace, this could become Europe's largest refugee crisis since World War II. Matthew Saltmarsh, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, joins me live now to talk a little bit more about this. Matthew, more than 500,000 of these refugees are seeking refuge in Poland, just like Anastasia. But the UN is now reporting that the flow of refugees to Poland appears to be easing. So what more can you tell us about that?
Well, we've just updated the numbers today, and the overall numbers of refugees are at 1.2 million. More than half of those are in Poland. But as you said, the pattern of that movement changes. It's very hard to say day by day. Most of them have gone to Poland, but significant numbers to other countries in the region. And now also we've seen more cases of people moving on into Western Europe. So it is still a very, very fluid situation. And of course, it depends very much on the scale of conflict on the ground and where people can get to. And of course, if they can get out of the country.
Now, Matthew, Europe is giving people leaving Ukraine a safe refuge and extended rights to stay in the European Union for up to a year. But these sanctions will only apply, or these protections, I should say, will only apply to Ukrainian citizens and refugees. So what is the UN planning to do to help other refugees who were living in Ukraine but aren't citizens?
We understand, of course, we very much welcome this news from the EU. The Temporary Protection Directive it initially gives a 1-year form of leave, but that, I understand, can be extended until up to 3 years. And I also understand that there are provisions for so-called third country nationals to be able to stay in the EU as well. We'll need to wait for the full details of that to come out from Brussels. But of course, some of those who got over the border who are third country nationals will, we assume, be able to go back to their countries. At least we hope that anyway.
So hundreds of refugees from Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen were stranded at the border of Belarus and Poland late last year, blocked from entering the EU. So what do you say about what appears to be this double standard in refugee treatment?
Well, we've long been saying to the European authorities, it's very important that you make asylum available to anyone who is fleeing persecution. We've seen a number of what we call pushbacks on the borders of Europe prior to this crisis and conflict in the Ukraine. And we were very critical of that. So our view is very much you have to treat asylum seekers in the same way. Everyone has a right to seek asylum if they need it. And you need to put in place those structures in terms of the asylum process, but also in terms of the reception and allowing refugees to integrate in Europe, in any country. And that's fundamentally important wherever you come from in the world.
And Matthew, your agency, as well as Ukrainian officials, have both acknowledged and denounced the discrimination that refugees of color faced throughout this process, as you're saying. So is there any sense of how many people this happened to, and have there been any changes made to the evacuation efforts?
We don't know exactly how many cases. Of course, we've seen a number, and as you say, they were extremely concerning, and we've come out strongly, as have other parts of the United Nations. And we hope that we don't see any more of it. We really do. We don't need this in this situation with so many hundreds of thousands, millions of people in a desperate plight. Everyone needs to be treated equally on the border. And we've had assurances from European governments that, of course, this is not state policy and that anyone who gets out of the country is welcome to stay in those reception centres.
And so will anyone be held accountable for blocking and delaying these refugees from leaving?
Well, it's hard to say right now, but you can rest assured that agencies like ours and other UN agencies are following up and we'll make sure that there is some form of response that comes. At the moment, I think the real focus is on getting aid, protection to those who desperately need it, who are coming over. We're hearing increasingly in a very traumatized state. I'm obviously not on the border now, but I've been in close touch with colleagues who are. And to be honest with you, they are pretty shocked at what they're seeing. And these are professionals who have worked in this area for many decades, in some cases, in some of the worst conflicts of recent years. And they're pretty shaken by what they've seen on the border.
Now, Matthew, this conflict in Ukraine will have lasting impacts for years to come. What kind of funding will be needed to help those affected going forward?
Lots of funds will be needed, clearly. In the last couple of days, the UN has come out with several appeals. These are appeals for inside Ukraine, where the needs are going to be absolutely enormous, and also for those refugee hosting countries on the border. But it's important to remember also that those countries, for the most part, are members of the EU. So the EU will step in and primarily provide that support. But what we've seen already is that the international community is stepping up, and it is being generous already. Our part, that's UNHCR's part of that refugee response appeal, was around about 500 million. And we've heard that already 150 million or so has been generated. So that's very quick, and that's very positive. And we've also heard that the private sector is stepping up, and that big companies, big names have been providing funding. All of that is absolutely fantastic. But the one thing we would also add is don't forget other refugee crises around the world. If you look at certain appeals for countries in Africa, and particularly in parts of the Middle East, those are chronically underfunded. So while the attention is now very much on Ukraine, rightly so, let's not forget that there are 26 million refugees in the world, 82 million forcibly displaced people, and the needs in many, many of those places are absolutely acute as well.
Well said. Matthew Saltmarsh, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.